I was like, Mark, I somehow I just got it.
I was interested.
Okay, great. Because when I sat down, I remembered that I was the chair. But
Yeah.
then after us doing this for a while, I got yeah. Oh yeah, so add the
It's
okay, is it? All right. I call this meeting of the Iowa Vista Community Service District Policy Committee to order at 1:07 p.m. I will announce that this meeting is being recorded. I'll do a roll call. And the corrected roll, Director Freeman is here. Director Craig.
Here.
Director Aguilar.
Here.
All right, moving on to, we are all here. Moving on to the land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Anaskoya, the land that Iowa Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Moving on to agenda item 2, public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the finance committee that are not on the agenda. The committee will not take any action on any item not on the agenda, except as provided by law. Is there any public comment?
There's none right now.
Seeing none, moving on to discussion and action items 3.1, review paid sick time policy update. The committee will review the proposed paid sick time policy update, give direction to staff, and or recommend the policy to the board. Jonathan.
Yes, could we do me a favor and move to the community center matrix one first, because we have to just find the right sick leave doc. It's not in there.
Great.
It's
Reorganizing the agenda, moving 3.2, bumping 3.1 later, review community center matrix update. The committee will review the proposed community center matrix update, give direction to staff, and or recommend the policy to the board.
awesome. Well, Maya is here too on Zoom. I guess we can't see her. But let me switch to the gallery views. So we can hear from her. So we're just making some minor edits today, and also looking to your direction on other edits we can make. So the main edit was removing the COVID-19 provisions since the emergency declaration is ending in a week. So removing the vaccine required by the host and removing the mask requirement, because those aren't going to be in effect. The mask requirement is not in effect anymore at the county level. And the vaccine requirement has, the way we've done it has been, the way we had decided to do it originally was ask the event host to enforce it with their own guests. But that's always been, a hit or miss thing. That event hosts, there's no way for us to really enforce that on the hosts themselves. So with the emergency declaration is being over, we were looking to remove those requirements, and we had some event hosts be confused about how they should do that.
Including myself.
Including yourself. There you go. So it's not, we can move past this. So that's the main change that Maya is looking at. But we did have some other things that we wanted to bring up just to let you know about on this policy. One is the security deposit. So we haven't had a way to operationalize that requirement yet for the high intensity events, but we're planning to get to that point now where we have people can give us a check that we hold and we don't cash, and we just give it back to them. So that's where we're thinking of going there to implement that part of the policy. And then right now for private individuals and organizations that aren't affiliated to IV, we do have a fee. Oh my God. We do have a fee, being the Santa Barbara County fee schedule, and we've used that a couple times now. We have a private company who wants to do COVID testing at the community center, for example. We're gonna charge them the half rate of the full day that the county charges for their facilities. And that's the charge they had used for the community center to rent it out before we took it on. So we're just using the same fee right now. But what we're hearing from our attorneys is that we don't have to do a fee study for fees relating to rent. Like if we're renting out a space, that doesn't need a complicated fee study. It's whatever the market can bear. So
whatever the market can bear. It's not whatever we.
yeah, I mean, whatever we want. So we are gonna work on bringing something back about how we would want to have a fee system for private individuals and organizations. And we're thinking of things like valuing different amounts of time at different levels and not in a linear way, because taking on a 4-hour chunk, for example, is a different impact to our schedule than taking a 1-hour chunk. And Maya, I wonder if you want to share anything else on this end. We haven't had too many private events like this, but if you want to share anything on this.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered everything. I guess that's pretty much the main point, is that we haven't had any other number on other than that one cost that the county gave us that one time that we've been using. And I also don't get a ton of requests, but I have turned people away before when I can't give them a good fee. But yeah, I would like to finite this and really have a detailed response that we can share with people. I do think the 350 is pretty fair for an 8-hour day. But we've just been kind of guesstimating like, okay, 4 hours, half of that will charge this much. But we would like to look into something that's a little bit more finite with explanations and things of that sort. So I guess just starting to think about that, and if there's anything specific that you want to include or address in something like this that you want me to explore, I would love any feedback, and I can share with you when I develop something.
Thank you, Maya. And then the last thing, just related to this before we get your comments and questions and feedback, is the cleaning situation right now. So the way the policy's working and reading is that, the cleaning is on the user who reserves it. And that obviously has not always gone right. I mean, high percentage of people do clean. It's a super majority, but we definitely have those users who leave a mess behind, sometimes consistently, sometimes one-off. So that's another area where, if we clean, like sometimes it's our staff, like our interns or Maya, who end up just going and cleaning up themselves. So that's a cost to the district, obviously. That's their, we're paying for that. It's not, it's not a massive cost right now, but it's just something to think about in terms of how we, other facilities do have a cleaning fee. And maybe we have something where if you do leave it messy, we have to give you a small charge just to do the cleanup, because it's not fair to other people renting the space that they're leaving a messy area. And that then, we might not plan to be there immediately after every event to clean it up to get it ready for the next user. So that would be the thoughts on cleaning. So yeah, I wanted to hear your direction, because we want to make the COVID changes now. That would be good to just get to the board for being timely, but for fees and how we handle that, we are getting into that territory now, and we have users, like private users, who are growing, and we've seen the cleaning situation play out now for a year. So
Yeah, and on the topic of cleaning, we I guess monitor that through our checkout system, where we have people send us pictures. And I will say that has helped a lot as far as keeping cleaning consistent and putting some responsibility on the users that do it. Sometimes it's as simple as people aren't putting the trash cans back, and the trash cans are labeled with signs, right? So, that's something that I have my staff going in weekly and doing checks just to make sure. But then there is the more large scale cleaning items, like let's say, someone broke glass on the floor, and, we need to do a deeper clean to get stuff like that up. And I think just exploring whether, it's a minor thing and how we can, justify our time versus when we do need to hire Big Green to come in and do a full deep clean, which, with some large events, that might just be a requirement, because you're going to want it to be a good job. You want it to be very thorough. If there's 100 plus people in the space, you do want it to be sanitized properly, and, things of that nature that we'll need to consider. But yeah, Jonathan, great job explaining that. Just adding on.
I higher level, there's something I'm confused by. So
Mhm.
this is the draft of the new table that is going to be used.
It's almost exactly the same as the one we've approved, just removing the COVID stuff. That's the changes we made right now. We haven't changed
So-
anything else.
When you look at it on whatever you're looking at it on, the COVID thing's not there.
It should be a suggested strikeout.
Oh,
For the
It
vaccine
doesn't-
requirement.
It doesn't show suggested
Okay,
strikeout, but
but
it
yeah.
does have a little,
That's the proposal, is that
but it
we're
is to remove
striking,
that
we're
section.
striking the COVID-19 section.
okay. So I guess, what are the other edits that you're seeing there?
I
That's
don't,
the only edit.
yeah, that's the only,
Okay, all right.
I don't see that edit, but I just.
Great, that there are no other edits. I don't see that.
Yeah, I'll
So I
try to
don't-
fix the Google Docs for this. I don't
Well,
know.
it's also quite possibly my fault for sitting here using the.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay, yeah. my bad.
So I was confused. I was like, it all says yes there. Is this table is gonna be presented to users?
I mean, not like this, we make
Okay.
it in a simple
Because there's
way.
like things like reservation, like having it be a 1 week notice, 2 week notice, and 1 month notice where they're each yes. I think it's gonna be way less confusing to have one row which is required notice, and then like in the table it says
Yeah.
1 week, 2 weeks.
This is a policy, we have a
Okay.
totally user-friendly way
Alright, great.
online to
Okay,
communicate.
Yeah, users do see this though. I will add, like I do have users sign our policy, our general policy when they agree to use this space, just kind of as a way for hold accountability. But I do break this down for them and meet with them and talk to them. So they don't just see this, but they do sign and agree to this.
Okay, in that case, I mean, I do think that nothing else, the notice section should be collapsed from 3 rows to 1 row, and then put the amount of notice in the table as opposed to the yes, no's. I'm very sorry, I'm still trying to, the suggestion here is that everyone is responsible for cleaning? Or you're
That's
saying
already
there's a
the
change
case.
you wanted?
That's already the
There's a
case.
change you wanted to suggest? Or-
I mean, we wanna move into maybe a situation where
There's a fee.
there's a fee to clean after people. Because
And so by putting cleaning, that doesn't imply a fee.
there's
Just
no,
because everyone's-
that's what we meant with
If
the,
we're, okay,
yeah, when, a
So
couple years ago.
Currently, there's no fee, but say if you were to be delinquent in like a cleaning requirement, then there would be a fee. And so
Yeah,
the
but it doesn't say
proposed
that.
change would be to add in that second clause.
and so, and the way that we done on the table is there, you'd add another row that would say cleaning with fee and cleaning without, I guess I'm just trying to understand what was the.
Well, we would figure it out. We're not even proposing that specific language. We're trying to
Alright.
hear what your openness to fees
Okay.
and fee systems. So that we can develop something without, not in a black hole, like we want to
Okay.
get your input first.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so some of the examples already are like small things that would be kind of like
Yeah.
strange to have a fee for, but in order to have like a well-functioning policy, we'd have to just be like continuous. Huh. I mean, it is pretty common, like, like when people sign up for like Airbnbs, there's like a fee tacked on and then that whole thing and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, like how we have an adequate size fee for like the real problems that we're trying to fix
Yeah,
without being like all over the place.
because there are a lot of things that people do in there that I don't feel really require cleaning at all, in some sense, like the yoga thing that I went to, like they could theoretically make a mess, but they'd have to really go out of their way from what they're normally doing to make a mess.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't want it to be a default extra fee that we're averaging, because I would prefer
Makes
to not
sense.
have the
Exactly.
events that don't subsidizing the ones that do need that.
Sorry, could it be kind of like a portion of the security deposit where, like we just reserve a part of that, and then if there is a mess, like that can go towards cleaning?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
something
we could,
we had. Yeah, that was something that
can
we
do
had
that, but
discussed.
really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just everyone, the Zoom would be great if we raised our, I can see it and let Jay know who's trying to talk, but for the,
I thought that worked for what it's worth.
okay. We don't require security deposits for all except for high intensity events, so it wouldn't work for medium and low who do leave a mess, but we could do that for the high ones, or add a security deposit to the smaller events. But it doesn't sound like you might want to do that.
I guess my feelings on it change also depending on what the amount is for the, like, that we think those would be required,
Yeah.
so. I mean, for the grand scheme of things, we're talking about $20 for the cleaning and the need to have like a $20 deposit with relation to the thing. It seems much easier to me than if people are having to put down a, you know, like a $150 deposit ahead of time that then they're gonna potentially lose some weird amount of, like.
Well, and this is, to clarify, this is specifically for the Blue Community Center building only,
It's for both.
for both, okay. I'm looking at our like calendar to imagine like sizes of it.
Are there any models of how similar community centers go about doing this?
We're doing our research right now.
Okay.
Maya's working with her research to compare and contrast us with
Mhm.
others.
Do you feel like you've gotten some feedback?
Yeah. I think we have. I mean, I like the idea of you guys, like maybe it's just a smaller deposit that we just keep. So it's like small skin in the game, $20, almost anyone can meet. And yeah, they do leave a mess. It's the skin in the game we can kind of use. So that makes sense.
If that, yeah, if that covers our risk of like fees to clean or hours that, you know, our own staff use, then
Yeah.
like, then I think that's substantial.
It essentially would, you know, and then we have to figure out how exactly to make it work. But yeah, our interns breakdown could pay like 17 an hour.
Got you.
So that was it.
I have a follow-up question with Maya. So like some events, such as including the event that I was running occasionally, involve food, and there are things where it's like there's a lot of opportunity for mess. But have you run into many situations of events that when you looked at them, you were like, yeah, I don't see that would really have a mess, that then ended up having a sufficiently annoying mess that it caused a problem?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it definitely varies. I think that there's some like I would say like risk groups or risk events where I can foresee a big mess. And the ones that I don't foresee a mess, like I said, it can be something as simple as like maybe they didn't put some of the items back where they belong, or they like misread, you know, part of their responsibilities to take out the trash, you know. So I kind of on the same page with you all where you're saying like I don't think that every single event needs to be putting down a security deposit, but I do think there needs to be like a very clear understanding that if they weren't to and they did leave a mess, that there is some sort of implication on their end, whether that be like a non-monetary thing that we do or monetary, if that makes sense.
Okay. You do feel like you've got,
Yeah.
okay,
We can work from here. Yeah.
all right. So in that case, is there any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing no public comment, are there any final points that the board members would like to make? Seeing none, moving on.
Olivia has her hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I agree with Maya. I don't think that our staff should have to be responsible for, you know, messes that are made. But yeah, I'd like to see, you know, looking into how other community centers are potentially doing this, looking at the ways that we could go about it. But yeah, I also agree with what Jay was saying. I don't want it to be, you know, some huge amount of money that like serves to inhibit community groups from using these spaces.
Right. And I see, by the way, I'm sorry, what I did is I looked over and I was like, looked for your hand. And I was like, I don't see your hand up. And then and I even was like, is her hand up? No, that's a pillow. And then you said her hand is up. And I was like, I don't think her hand is up. Wait, I see the little
Zoom
raised
hand.
hand icon. Okay, so I should be staring at that. Sorry about that. Moving on to back to agenda item 3.1.
Okay.
Okay, review paid sick time policy update. The committee will review the proposed paid sick time policy update, give direction to staff, and or recommend the policy to the board.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a proposed one this time. It's more of like a follow-up discussion to the board meeting. So you all, I think everybody was there. This happened at the December meeting. So we'd like to see what you all would like to do here. What the, as you can see, the board comment was to remove this clause so that we, sorry, I'm not calling back costs. The comment from the board was to remove this. It was also to just be generally more generous with temporary employees and sick leave and just allowing it, right away rather than the 90 days is what I heard. So just want to see how you guys want to take this. But yeah, I have no other additional comments because we've been looking at this before. So what do you guys want to do? And you don't have to wordsmith it. You can just say, here's what we think we want to do and that the board would approve, and I can make those edits. But how do you want to do that?
I have a quick question. When we last discussed this at policy committee, the policy committee, was Kirsten on policy committee?
It was Catherine.
Catherine was on policy committee. Okay. I am okay with this change. I do think what's going to happen is that I believe that at the meeting in December, we received board feedback, and then we're going to go. No, yeah, that's interesting. I think we're gonna end up having another discussion about this at the board when we come back to the board. But I'm okay with the change.
Well, so my question, I thought that some of this paragraph was based on like required state policy.
Yeah, it's technically, this is the bare minimum. That's what the state is saying, it's
Yeah,
waiting 90 days.
Removing the clause makes us more generous than
Got
the bare
you,
minimum, so.
So we just become a nicer.
Yeah.
Now I understand the direction of change.
Essentially, the argument for not removing this is that it leads to some scenarios where somebody starts temporarily working and then can immediately utilize things that, and then potentially leave before and then get paid in various ways. But like, we were going to end up paying them anyway in a lot of these cases. Because
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
just delaying the payment. And I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
I think it's just added complexity trying to explain it to everybody.
Yeah,
So,
it does appear that this highlighted section just delays the still earned payment.
So
Yeah.
so that's also, so I was just like, this seems pointless.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay,
removal.
sounds good. So
Olivia, do you have a comment?
I'm for the removal of the 90-day period.
All right. Were there any other questions that you were wanting to address with us today, gentlemen?
yeah, there was one other thing that came up at the board meeting was the 10 days of consecutive use. I think there was comment it should be 3 or 5 versus 10. So what, I guess we should have a consensus here at least on what policy committee is going to recommend. How many days before someone
Must meet.
must
with
get
the
a
general
doctorate
manager.
note? Yeah, meet with the GM and provide a note.
I personally was very excited about mostly ceding my opinion towards Marcos, who had very strong opinions about how this would work.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Relation to
like I
diversity.
had a very strong opinion
Now-
previously. Now it's back to work and it's like very distant. So I'm trying to imagine the scenario though. Like it's great. Yeah.
So while you're thinking about that, so Olivia, some of the thought process that had occurred was that it seemed almost miserly to require people to have to, in some cases, people can ask for doctor's notes and things like that. And so in this case, we were just looking at having something where with the, if somebody was actually sick, that they would end up only this feeling limited in the amount of time that they would be able to actually utilize their own sick leave that they had accumulated. And so I remember Marcos having told a passionate story about his work with the university, who seemed particularly strict on making certain that you were not abusing this kind of policy. And then we brought it back to the board, and I kind of remember Kirsten from the university pushing back on, well, but shouldn't you be more strict like the university?
Yes.
So
Yeah, my motivation and thinking was that if somebody has accrued sick time, that means they've been employed for a long time. So clearly they've there's a trust relationship between the employee and employer. So if they've earned 7 days of more of sick time, and they use like 7 of their sick time days, like many people utilize during COVID and things like that, they would not require like an in-person, or would not require an official meeting, let alone a doctor's note to prove their illness or need to be away from work physically. But instead, like the flexibility window is 10 days. In our general meeting discussion, it was kind of thought as like a more or a less involved management style, and thus less caring to the employee, to be like, oh, you're on your own, I'm not going to check in with you until it's been 10 days. So there's two sides to the coin of like, oh, the manager is less involved and less aware of someone being ill, like shouldn't we check in on them if they don't come for 4 days in a row? And I do agree that's an important thing to consider.
I feel like, I don't know what you're right, there are two sides to it. I think that 5 days is probably good. Like, if you don't come into work for a week, I think you should definitely be checked in on.
So 5 days.
another thing, by the way, Olivia, that you missed was my discussion. Part of the reason why I'm very interested in y'all's opinion and largely seeing on some of these aspects is that I haven't had a job where I need to think about this. And because of that, I certainly don't want to be in the situation of being the person who like arbitrarily setting limits on people that like I don't even realize how damaging it is because I've never experienced the other side of it. So
I think like a week is like a good first round, like 5 days in a row, because that's our current workday like cycle. And then like, I don't know, I can imagine someone getting a really uncomfortable flu, and maybe they're like better quote on the 3rd day, but like, will they be 100%? Not necessarily. And I think it's good for the employee to have like the time to go from 80% to 100%, especially like that's my personal opinion when I think about workers' rights and that kind of a thing. But I don't feel so impassioned that like it has to be 10 days. I'm not going to hold on to 10 days like I did previously.
So are you feeling more like you would prefer 10 to 5, or are you liking Olivia's 5?
I'm liking Olivia's 5 because when it was brought to my attention that like, oh, like we're ignoring, bless you, if we're ignoring that one of our employees is out because it's like our policy says we don't have to check on them, then that is like a lack of care for the employee in a certain way. And I don't want to be seen as showing a lack of care for our employees at any level.
Okay, then it sounds like we've got 5.
So after 5 days of
Yeah.
consecutive use of paid sick leave, the employee and GM will need to discuss their needs and or implement a new work schedule. And at this meeting, the employee will produce the doctor's note.
You have a comment, which is, oh, wait, did it say Dr. You bring the
Medical provider's letter. So it's-
And yeah, the last sentence
yeah.
is at this meeting, the employee shall produce like medical letter. That part is the hard part.
That I have a hard time.
That's
Yes.
like the individual challenge. that-
Yeah, I somehow like I mentioned the doctor's note things I remember talking about, but then I was looking at it, I was like, I don't see it though. I guess I just
I'll
missed it.
share my opinion. It was part of it
So
last time.
The problem there is that particularly for people who don't have easy, like I now have easy access to a doctor that I can email, I can ask all sorts of things,
Right,
and I just now feel ridiculously privileged for being able to do that because I deal with people who constantly don't even have any way of getting to the doctor. Before I was able to get to, because I could go to urgent care because I had the money for it. But I know so many people who just be unable to obtain any form of doctor's note.
Yeah.
And so, let's see, information about reasonable advancement verification of their need to use a create their supervisor if the need for sick leave is foreseeable. So this is actually not even related to the consecutive list. This was just generally, if you're using paid sick leave, you have to have a doctor's note.
This is two separate clauses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is not, so this is actually, so I just want to, like, this is not, if you're going to use a lot of sick leave, if you use any sick leave, you're supposed to provide.
This is,
We're talking about H.
this is H. If you use 5 days already in advance, in a row,
Right.
then you meet with your supervisor, the GM, and you have a doctor's note after you've used 5 days in a row.
And shall produce a medical provider. Okay, so what is I is saying that you need to
This is if you're
have a
gonna be
doctor's
out
appointment
sick.
scheduled in advance.
It's if you're gonna be out sick, there should be some advance notice reasonable if you can.
Okay,
So if you get in a car accident, obviously there wouldn't be any advance notice, but if you're got a dentist appointment in 3 months, you can let your supervisor.
okay,
know.
I'm sorry. I've heard this.
It's okay. It's okay, but that's something that came up that we should define is the
Yeah,
reasonable
no, so
advance
this
notice, but
shall produce a medical provider's letter that describes their needs
this is where we're.
in the workplace.
Yeah, which we've had to do ourselves before, when we've had employees out sick for a very long time and unsure how they're gonna come back and like.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
those were cases where that person was out for weeks, months.
But we needed that starting after.
Right.
Like if we, it probably would have been better if we got more stringent direction after weeks instead of months, so.
Yeah,
Because this is saying I guess this doctor's note is what is not like excuse this person for being sick, more of like this person cannot do these things because they're sick. Like, let's say they broke their legs, they need
Yeah.
3 months to recover from their leg injury, and that's what the doctor should tell us. Like, we shouldn't determine like, oh yeah, your leg should be good
Yeah.
in 4 months and we'll bring you back then. So that's what this is saying.
And for like an illness, like when I think about like the most recent like COVID situation, like if you were sick for 3 days and then you got a test, or maybe, I don't know what the legislation is on that, but like then we have this authoritative like document of some kind. Like,
that's not a letter.
I know it exactly.
Yeah.
That's like the gray area, but that's where I feel like this the most recent examples that people are familiar with. I'm trying to like.
You can split these up, then you can say that after 5 days of using sick leave, they have to meet with the GM to discuss, the situation. Maybe they're like, I'll be better tomorrow, and then that's it. Or they'll be like, no, I'm still sick. And then you can say a separate clause being after 10 days, maybe that's when they do need to provide a letter. Because we can't just let people indefinitely be out,
No, that makes
because we need to at least know how they're going to come back to work and in what fashion.
Like,
And the district needs some certainty too. So
Yes, if the goal is to deal with the case where people are out for weeks, months, et cetera, I feel much more comfortable doing that.
as a
But
separate,
I'm okay with, I want to be clear that like, I'm trying to be extremely like empathic towards the potential for issues. And so like, I think I'm also hearing Marcos, at least is on board this issue. So but if everyone's also just saying like, we don't need to worry about this, like doctor's notes are possible, but it seems like.
No, I think a doctor's note is a somewhat difficult thing,
Okay.
especially for the majority of our like staff. Like I don't personally, I have health insurance with the university, and that's a nice privilege, and I can go to like urgent care, but I don't have a like whatever the regular practitioner is that I talk to all the time, so I can't send an email yet per se. That's due to pure immaturity and laziness, but
And also, it's very difficult to get a primary care physician in Santa Barbara now.
that's all I've heard for years, so I just quit. Anyways, yeah, I am more comfortable, I guess, with this like the medical letter being after a 10-day period.
yeah.
And the 5-day window is when they just need to, as an individual, discuss.
No, I'll just let you.
Yeah.
I like that, Olivia.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree. I think that 5 days is definitely a good check-in point, and then I do think 10 days of leave plus the weekends, so really more like 14 days is definitely a more like reasonable timeline to, you know, obtain that doctor's note.
On which note, by the way, the definition of consecutive use, I think I know what it means, but it does seem like if somebody is only supposed to work on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and
Right.
they are out for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, is that Tuesday and a Thursday between?
I think
It
if those
should
are their
be.
only work days.
Right, but
yes.
I feel like we should have a definition of consecutive for that purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah,
But
I mean, I'm writing this additional
yeah,
clause.
but that's like a bonus gravy thing that I feel like, but I just imagining quibbling with somebody over what that means, because I did have to ask myself a second. Yeah, no.
Uh, Okay, so we want to define consecutive, so a workday, after 5 work days of consecutive use,
Scheduled work days?
scheduled work days, that's a good word.
Oh, I like this.
Thank you.
All right, is there anything else where we have Q to discuss on this?
Yeah, one last thing is
Right.
what the reasonable advance notification, if we wanted to find that came up too at the meeting. Right now, it's just, judgment of what reasonable is, but it could be other things. It hasn't been a big problem either way, like I haven't had an issue with somebody being out sick and not giving enough notice, or maybe just once, I guess, but yeah. But it came up, so I just wanted to ask.
I guess it's like, the worst case would be like a no-show or something.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is reasonable that there's like a no-show, like you mentioned, like a car
Right.
accident or something.
Right.
But say if I woke up with like a cough and I decided I'm not going to work, hopefully I can like email my supervisor or message my supervisor somehow. So the possible like gap we need to cover is defining reasonable or having more numbered parameters.
We don't have to, but that's just, it was one of the points that came up. It might be something nobody ends up saying we need to solve, but yeah, reasonable is a word that's used all the time in legal spaces, and it is a flexible term of what a reasonable person might think. So we could leave it as is, and there is excuse me, the second sentence, it says if it's unforeseeable, they just, as soon as it's practicable. Yeah.
I'm comfortable with this clause, this I clause.
Okay. And just to reiterate some things, we've had permanent employees who are gonna get to 168, and temporary employees they're gonna accrue 1 per 30 hours, which is different than the full-time permanent who accrue at a standard, 4 per pay period. And yeah, so they get a cap of 48. The last thing we might want to consider is, I think we had already solved this last time, but I just want to make sure we're good, is we have full-time employees accruing at 4 hours per pay period, and we have temporary employees for 1 hour for every 30, and then we have D, which is saying part-time permanent will just be on a prorated basis, so that's 2 hours per pay period. That's the last thing to figure out. Do we want to give the permanent part-time 2 hours per pay period or 4 per pay period. And that was I think that was another thing that came up in the meeting is, do we want to prorate that or not? I remember the thing that was brought up is like everyone gets sick the same, so it's like, but it is paid sick leave, so if you're working less hours, you have less hours to take off
Yeah.
work, but
Exactly.
yeah, but yeah, it's just a weird interaction of how like people time versus work time of when you're sick. You might be sick for days, but that's like only varies on the amount of time of work that is.
Yeah, like there could be a full-time permanent employee who works 8 hours, 5 days a week, and there could be a part-time permanent employee who works 4 hours, 5 days a week. But then the human sick time would cover all of that. And they would
Exactly.
be out of their hours very quickly.
Right.
Yeah, when I think about that situation, I would want them to get the 4 hours. Personally.
Does Olivia have a comment?
I think
Not
I
to
would
put you on the spot.
I think, I understand that, yeah, working less means you accrue less paid time off, but I would definitely, err on the side of giving people more. So I'd probably be more likely to go along with 4 hours for every pay period.
Okay, so I'll just delete D and then make B permanent employees accrue paid sick leave at a rate of. And I can even put full and part-time to clarify for future policy committees who don't watch this video and don't know why we did it the way we did it.
Okay,
Let me just comment that, delete and make both full and part for our accrual. Cool, all right, so we're good on this one. We can, if you guys want to make a motion to recommend this to the board with these changes, that'd be great.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the board with these changes.
recommend what?
I will second.
I'd like to recommend the currently updated sick leave policy with these changes to the board.
Okay, motion by Marco, seconded by Olivia.
Yes.
Is there any public comment on this motion?
What do I see?
Hearing none, moving on to a roll call vote. Marcos,
Aye.
Olivia,
Yes.
Jay, aye. Motion passes 3-0-0-0 at 1:49 p.m.
Great.
What was the 4-0?
Vacant seats, I think.
Absent, right?
Abstain,
abstain and
absence, and absent, yeah.
I need like a full notebook.
All right, so thank you guys, that was good.
All right, is there anything else we would like to cover on this agenda item before we leave? Hearing none, is there any public comment on the agenda item as whole or things that they would like to demand us continue to discuss? Seeing none, moving on to agenda item 3.3, review board vacancy policy. The committee will review the proposed board vacancy policy, give direction to staff and or recommend the policy to the board.
Yeah, so let me share my screen. So fun note, policy committee did review this back in 2018, but for some reason I couldn't find a record of us actually approving it.
Okay, because I was like, I feel like we
We've
have this policy.
yeah, but the thing is I couldn't find an actual record of it being voted in. And that's just maybe a mess up, so much was happening in 2018. It was sometimes, but this is what we use anyways this year. Like we followed this policy. It's just the law essentially. It's just giving a guide for the board to use in the future. Okay, so essentially vacancies will exist once the director sends a letter to the GM. Once the vacancy does exist, the board has the option to appoint or call an election. Here's the restriction, 60 days for the county, before the county just makes the appointment. This is something we this is not according to the law. The 15 days thing is where you don't appoint any sooner than 15 days after you've published it. But the notice of vacancy within 3 business days, that's our thing. The appointments here, all application, this is just the law. It's like when someone's joins and will they be finishing the term or running for re-election at some point. And then we notify the county within 15 days. So this is all standard. The main elective thing is like our notice of the vacancy. And then also that's it. And we also added that directors should submit a letter. That's not technically in the law. The law just, there's just a situation, based on these criteria, this seat is vacant, but we just ask that we get a formal letter of resignation. So this is where we go about it. Yeah. But yeah, while it's fresh.
What? I don't know if you know this, but what really does it even necessarily mean at the state level for a seat to be vacant?
Do you
Like, let's say that somebody just doesn't show up and just,
Yeah.
we know they're still living here, so they're not disqualified.
Yeah.
And they were elected, they just literally never show up. The seat would it be vacant?
It would eventually
point?
become
Okay.
vacant if somebody doesn't show up. There is a process for determining that. His or her absence from the state, for example, without, like, if they leave the state.
Yeah, but
No,
let's say they're literally
No, 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 that is also the case. Yeah,
Okay.
there is a
3 consecutive months, except when
There
provided
is.
with sickness or when absent from the state, or ceasing to discharge the duties for 3 months. Okay.
Yeah, so they just don't show up to meetings, and I guess you can show up once every 3 months and not get removed.
My goodness.
We can, yeah, I don't think we can go stricter than the state on that.
Yeah, I was so now the
guys hear us again now? Cool. Okay. Something happened. So just to get back to where I was at here is, we have it here saying that after the vacancy occurs, that we publish a notice and that the notice has the appointment process in it. So it's assuming that we are going to an appointment.
Got you.
Um,
Rather than there's a possibility where we don't meet and discuss again, and then we're in limbo between.
the two meetings, and this time was a super unique case where the resignation happened before the winter break and recess that we have, and we don't meet most of December until the beginning of January, but usually it should happen within 10 days of another meeting or 13 days of a meeting.
So if we're in a situation where suddenly 4 board members resign all at the same time,
Yeah,
are the 3 remaining board members allowed to do a 2/3 vote to appoint somebody?
I don't know. I would assume the board of supervisors appoints at that point, at least one, and then the rest can appoint.
And we might prefer that to an election, or
The election was expensive and
it is very
delayed.
expensive. Yeah, the election is just so expensive. Yeah, I'm on board of always appointing. I
So
don't,
just remove the option.
yeah, I think we just remove that option and,
Well, so this time the election was far away, so it felt really undemocratic. It would be on a different day, more than almost 7 or 8 months after.
oh, yeah, I think we're talking about calling an election.
Well, it's just because the odd year, if this vacancy had happened at the end of December, then of this year, then you could have had the election in March, for example.
Yeah, you're able to do, even you can call a mail-in ballot election. Like we can be like, we need to fill this seat tomorrow.
Oh, no, we cannot do
Wait,
that.
we can't?
No. You have to use one of the dates
You
that
do?
the state has for elections, and in odd years, it's March or November. And we couldn't do March.
You're allowed to tax people as we did with, or.
We were on the primary ballot.
We did a mail-in special ballot, didn't we?
That was the IVRPD.
But they're allowed to do whatever.
I don't know. Maybe for a ballot question, it's different, but for a,
Okay.
that was the legal research that Ross
Okay.
and I did, is that there are specific dates for elections in odd years, and you have to use those dates.
Okay.
That makes sense to me.
I mean, it makes sense. It weren't for the fact that I specifically remember
Yeah.
that weird election. So that's why I was okay.
I don't know why that was. I mean, I couldn't tell you, but
All right, cool.
all I know is that
We've disagreed with their legal
Yeah.
opinions on appointments in the past also, so
yeah,
that's
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Either way, their tax is in place. Yeah,
great.
no one challenged that.
Great. So, yeah, I'm all for just making it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm for making it implement. Also seems like it would be more affordable for folks to apply to an appointment versus the election ballot fees and things like that also can be kind of a lot.
Okay, I've got a question.
Yeah.
So because I was still mentally modeling it as us calling an election as opposed to. So if we're just, in the case of us appointing somebody, are we able to, this is again, I think my precedent on this is IVRPD. Do I believe anything that they do? So if we appoint somebody 2 months before an election, can they turn out at the election?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have some weird minimum where it's we put somebody in and they're stuck in for, okay.
In 2014, someone resigned from IVRPD in August and was appointed.
They did, yeah, but I don't use them as precedent now.
But that was
allowed.
allowed. That person served from August to December.
Yeah.
And that's it. It was monthly, if you remember. Yeah. So yeah, that's what would happen. That's what these.
Okay, all right. Then I wanted to know. Yeah, but I just wanted to be.
Okay, so it'll just go straight to an appointment, and then that means that the second someone resigns, then it becomes a staff operation at that point. It doesn't go to the board. I mean, we notify the board, of course, but once I get a resignation, we go straight to noticing it and putting out a timeline because we need to do that within 3 days. So it's like the staff pretty much needs to run it with the board president and decide on the dates for the special meetings and just go right away because we have to follow our, or we can make it more than 3 days. About 5 days might be easy. That's the elective. That's elective.
There's a time limit that we have to get somebody appointed by.
60
before
days.
60 days, and we've got 15 days for the applications we print in.
We minimum 15-day period of application is what we have here. Yeah.
And then after that, like, we need a lot.
We need
because
twice a month,
Yeah, so
yeah.
we're
We did
not
special-
really on a time crunch.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
special meetings for this time too. So.
Yeah, so honestly, okay, so I also think we should make that 3 more than 3, if nothing else, just so
Yeah.
that staff doesn't have to scramble just because
Yeah.
I screwed y'all by turning in a letter of recommendation right before you wanted to.
Yeah.
We were having
5
the
would be
busiest-
good enough. That would be awesome.
5 makes sense. Yeah.
So, cool. All right, well then this is good to go if you have anything left. And the only, just really quick, the only thing in here that also controls for like what the application is this 4A, which is, you'll submit your packet and which is a resume, and the board can hear candidates' statements and then vote. So there's no other detail on the process of appointment, but we can keep it like this or get more detailed on like what we want to require, what we want to,
I was actually intending, when we get to next agenda items, to say that I would like to talk about that at the next policy committee meeting. So I think it's separate. I think it's separate from this
Yes.
policy,
Okay,
because I think this policy is about how to
Notice.
and deal with the vacancies, and because I think there should be a general appointment process for all appointments that don't just include vacancies, but also include
okay, like,
president and vice president.
okay. But yeah, we'd have to edit this section eventually if we did change it, because this does say this is how the appointment works.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's okay. We can definitely save that as a general discussion for policy and do more research on it before. Because I didn't come in with that more research or just options for appointments. That's I just.
All candidates from first to 10. Make your where does it have a process?
That's the process.
No, yeah, but I mean like the process for like how all it says is we will hear candidate statements.
Yeah.
And shall vote, but
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
not how we hear,
right.
not, it's like, and so I actually think that, certainly the things that I'm suggesting are consistent with this process. So.
Okay, so we can just put it somewhere else and not do it here. Okay.
But yeah, but I also, because it sounds like we should have this in place, because we thought it's been in place since 2018, we should bring this to the board.
Just have to officially vote it in. Yeah.
Even if we have to edit this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I ask a
Yes.
question? I don't know.
Please ask as many questions as you like.
In like 3 and 5, where it says district manager, is that referring to
That's
you?
me, yeah.
Should that say general manager just so it's consistent, or?
Yeah.
Because in 1B it says general manager. so-
Oh, yeah, good catch.
2018 last time.
Yeah, and then 4D says district manager.
We definitely copy pasted a lot of policies from other people. Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Okay.
And I know we had some comments on just we'll make it consistent what's capitalized and what's not. Like board is capitalized and then not capitalized in different places. So we'll take that.
And Olivia, I don't want to make you feel like I'm putting you on the spot, but just because we're having like this like jovial back and forth type of conversation here, I want to make certain that like there's explicit space allocated to make certain. Olivia, do you have any comments on this?
I agree. I think that, I agree with all the points made. I don't think an election is necessary. It's expensive. I like the idea of an appointment. Yeah.
All right. Are you ready to have a motion to recommend this policy?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend this policy on board vacancy to the board.
I will second that.
Did you make amendments? You made amendments.
Yeah.
With the amendments.
All right, motion made by Marcos, seconded by Olivia. Is there any public comment on this motion? Seeing none, moving on to a roll call vote. Marcos,
Yes.
Olivia,
Yes.
Jay, yes, motion passes 3000 at 14:07. Oh, yeah. Is there anything else that we would like to cover on this agenda item? Officially, or because we're being annoying? Is there? No, I don't see anything. Is there anything in public comment about this agenda item before we move on? Seeing none, moving on to agenda item 3.4.
Okay, so just really quick to let you all know, it is 2:07 already. Wow, we've been here now. I did have a check-in meeting with another board member, Ella, just to help her get oriented on things at 2:30, and we could push that a little bit, but just giving you all a heads up that yeah, we are in a small time situation. And this one is not as urgent to figure out today. So this is a public art policy. We got the draft yesterday from our legal team, and we do have some projects in the works that would be good to have a policy for, just to give us backing. So we decided, like, let's just get this to you all today, get your input, and then there are revisions to make. Our staff has been commenting on it and leaving revision and like questions we'll have to address. So definitely not a final product today, but wanted to have you all get a first look before we go further into this.
And notably for the record, we're on agenda item 3.4, review public art policy. Can you review the public policy update, give direction to staff, and recommend policy support?
Yeah, sorry. So public art policy here, there's a lot of different purposes for this art policy. We've had a public art budget in our full district budget for as long as the district has existed. So it's always been an interest of ours, and it's one of the main purposes of public art is as a means of graffiti abatement. So instead of just cleaning up graffiti, putting the energy into something else to prevent it. So it's a preventative measure, but there's also other good purposes. We've now got public art on the community center. Our compost piles have public art on them. It's been a growing area of work with the district, and so it felt right to now have a way to control for things and to have just a more formal setup, especially as we discussed how do we partner with private property owners to install more public art, because there's just a limited amount of public property in Isla Vista. So didn't realize I hadn't shared my screen yet. So we have our purpose and intent here. Really straightforward. The legal team did a really amazing job, I thought, writing this. It really captures, I think, what we might want in doing a public arts program. The next page is, a list of definitions. Some of them, these are some pretty important ones we want to define, especially what exactly public art is. The next thing is, okay, so now we're going into the meat of the policy. First, it says we're going to create an inventory of public art, and that's also in our graffiti abatement policy, that we're going to create an inventory of public art, so that when we're doing our graffiti abatement work, we're not just abating an actual mural, assuming it's graffiti. So we have a list of all the art in IV, its address, where it is, it's details about it, who did it. Hopefully, it's always hard to get that, but we'll try. If anybody wants to install a public art installation using our funds, so this is not controlling for people who want to do it themselves and just do it. We love it, go for it. But if someone wanted to go through our process to be funded,
where does it say that?
Did you keep scrolling down?
It says an applicant for public art funds.
There's multiple pages.
I'm on, where?
Application process, it's B, 3B.
An applicant for public art funds must prepare and submit. Okay.
Yeah. To the district, like if they want to get funded to install a mural, essentially. They're gonna decide if it's gonna be IV Beautiful, community engagement, it fits either one, but that's something we need to figure out internally. So they have to, complete the application, which our legal team will produce for us, address of where they want it, photos, especially like if evidence that there's been graffiti at that location before, their resume essentially of things of, if they, of the artist, what their work history has been, the budget for it, what they want it to look like a sketch. And then if we have an application processing fee, which that doesn't seem like something we need, it's just something our attorneys left in there for us to consider, but I don't believe we need an application processing fee. Next, once they've submitted the application, and it's something we can for sure help them on with, and we might even be helping them do the application sometimes or navigate it because we want to propagate public art in IV. Once they turn it in, we'll have a review with our staff. They'll recommend it to myself. And then if I've agreed, we recommend the funding and support of that public art installation to our board. And then there's going to be you'll see the reasons why coming up. So if the board has, if the board likes it, it will approve the application and we'll get the art funded and installed. This next section is the findings. Like these are essentially the criteria we would judge things on. And it is going to be I don't want to call it difficult, but it's going to be a complex situation with the First Amendment because we cannot, we have to be viewpoint neutral. Like it cannot be, oh, we agree with this point that this art is making, and or we disagree with this point and we're not going to fund it. But these are the things we're looking for. So we can say that. So we are restricted. We can't be we have to be viewpoint neutral, but we can also say, here's the things we want to prioritize. And there's like more physical things like its durability, people who have experience, not just anyone can, someone who's never done any art before and now they want to do a massive public art mural, we'll look to somebody who has a little bit of experience at least. It's suitable for public viewing, like obviously if there was pornography, we wouldn't put that up. And then I is where we can, striving for diversity and equitable and equity. So and IB history. So sorry, it's really hard to breathe and talk at the same time. So this is the criteria we use. And then the reason we need board approval, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but one of the big reasons is that once we say yes, the maintenance becomes part of the equation, and we would maintain the public art if it was in the public right of way and something we funded. So there's a cost to that.
That's where I got confused.
Yeah. What's up?
This has public art that is approved for display, not public art that was approved to be made, or it's not about the funding. It seems to imply that there's some process by which if you want to do public art that is not part of our funding process, how would you get it approved for display?
Okay, maybe we can clarify it, but I think it means that this is public art that's gone through this process.
Yeah.
We can clarify that.
Yeah, public art that was funded by the district.
Yeah.
And displayed in the public right of way or on district property.
Yeah. So that's we'll make that clear. That was the intention though, is that if we're installing this art, we are taking on the responsibility of maintenance because a private property owner might not have that capacity, and this is a goal of ours.
Yeah. And the next sentence is the same thing where it felt even stronger. The public art that is approved for display on private property in accordance with this policy made it seem like there was a process in this policy for approving things for display, not merely for.
Yeah, we'll clarify this, that it means, I think there might be, sometimes our attorneys do use policies from other districts too.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure that it's obviously we need to approve for display if it's being funded by us, but we really are meeting things that we're working on. Yeah, not just any art.
Yeah.
But we can I don't want to, it's not really grandfathered, but if there's already existing public art, they could apply to make it as part of this program too. If that's something, we have already fix some murals on
Yeah,
private
it could be
property.
like a restoration kind of.
Yeah, so we could
application.
bring them into this, yeah. So yeah, we take on the maintenance of this and then this is the ownership clause. It's on land that's our land, it's vested with us. If it's artwork on private property, it could be transferred to us, and if we accept maintenance ownership, we maintain it. But you know, it's not saying we own it if it's on private property. We can take ownership, but we wouldn't own it if we installed that somewhere or approved installation or funded installation. And then this next section is, how do you even say this word? De-accessioning of public art. If we have to take something down, which will be rare and not likely, but if we had to for any reason, we'd at least have a policy to fall back on and say, here, we follow the rules on how to do that. So anyways, this is the first draft. We're still looking at it internally with the staff, especially on how it affects our operations. So would love to hear your general thoughts on where this is going and how we can adjust it.
In the policy on de-accessioning, which is how you pronounce it?
That actually sounds really right.
De-accessioning, what we say at the library, but
Okay.
it could be anything.
De-accessioning.
De-accessioning instead of like the double C hard cut. So
De-accessioning is actually missing a whole syllable.
that's how I hear it said. I know what you mean.
Weirdly, the alternative I was actually going for was de-accessioning, because I was like, the word is supposed to be access, right? We're removing access to public art, and like the fact that like the morphology would make it accessioning. But in that policy, it's art. Public art is found to be fraudulent or not authentic, and I'm wondering, what does it mean for the public art to be inauthentic?
I'm thinking of like a copyright issue. If somebody did art that was like breaching copyright and then we funded it or something, and then we learned that later, then we could be like in some kind of problem space as the owner or the funder of this thing.
Okay, because I was like stuck in some thought process of like, they said that it was gonna be made out of bronze, but that's actually brass.
That's
also a thing.
Yeah. Like if
But then it's like, well, we
doesn't
really need
one
to
rust
de-accession
more
it.
than-
Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, if we
just
want
because it
something
wasn't
that's,
made
like,
out of the
weatherproof.
materials.
Yeah.
The high level thing that I've been, so the public right of way is defined as public property within the boundaries of the district, including property owned, maintained, or controlled by. But the public right of way, if in previous things we described this, including like in our graffiti policy, has included things that are private property that are visible from the right of way.
8 feet away from.
And so I'm curious, like, are we intending to include in this a fence that is like, because some of the public art that we've been talking about at these various things has been like little fences that are right next to the sidewalk. Are those intended to be included in this policy?
That is technically, yes. The way our graffiti abatement policy reads, and maybe we should clarify it here, is that public right of way includes things that are within 8 feet of the curb. So a fence that is on the
Even if it's
sidewalk,
private property that's within 8 feet of the
it's in the public right of way.
right. Okay, yeah. So it's the definition that I think definitely needs to be changed.
Yeah, it's right in the graffiti abatement one.
Yeah.
And so we'll make them both link. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's how we justify cleaning up graffiti on fences without asking for permission, because it's in the right of way.
Those are my comments. I think I had a few more comments before you pointed out to me the thing about it being funded. Like
As far as I know it's a good point that we want to have an application process for taking on maintenance but not funding. Like if we're gonna adopt a mural that already exists.
Like restoration.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Anyone else have any comments on this?
No comments from me.
All right. Is there any public comment on this? All right, since this was just a draft and it sounds like you're still working on it, you're probably gonna bring it back to the next policy committee meeting?
Yeah, we just got it yesterday, so I just wanted to get it going, the process.
All right, so let's move on to agenda item 3.5, set regular meeting time. We will discuss setting a regular meeting.
Yeah, so you just have to set a day of the month and a time that's regular, so second Thursday at 3 or whatever.
We want to do it every month or want every 2 months?
I think we need every month right now.
Okay,
Um,
we're jumping in.
I think so.
Go from 3 years without policy committee meetings to
Every month.
every
we
month.
can cancel them if we're not ready, but it's good to have it because
Okay.
we just have things start to come up. So
I probably have the most ridiculously flexible schedule of anyone, so I'm just gonna sit back and let.
Trying to think of which day of the week I prefer.
One consideration that we've used in the past is that we discuss things that then have to be brought to a board meeting. And so it is somewhat annoying if, for example, it is the third Friday of the month, because it is almost always going to end up being like too late for Jonathan to be able to convert anything we do into the agenda for the
for sure.
fourth Tuesday of the month.
No, that's a great consideration. There's one interaction. It's like sometimes, a lot of times, like the third Tuesday is also the same week as sorry, I'm getting it mixed up. The second Tuesday is also the same as the first Thursday, for example.
Yeah.
There are those sometimes situations. I think, didn't we do it before as like the Thursday before the second meeting of the month or something like that? Like we had set that.
That sounds very familiar.
Right?
Yeah.
We did something like that.
So what days work for you?
I'm good with Thursday for sure. Thursday is a useful day for me.
Okay. Olivia.
Thursday is good for me right now. My schedule's kind of funky. I can do here, sorry, let me pull up my calendar. I can do basically 12:15 to 3, like in that gap.
15 to 3. Oh,
12:15.
12, 15.
Or I
Okay,
could
I'm sorry,
do,
okay.
or I could do
All right.
later in the evening. I could do after 6:15.
Okay.
Just FYI, I have SBCC usually on Thursdays, but it's not every Thursday, obviously. But
I question, I'm not asking because I'm expressing a preference, because honestly, I'm very flexible. I'm just curious because of the like other aspects of this of our schedule seems like it makes sense. Does Tuesday work for people? It does, because if we set it to be the third Tuesday, then it not only makes it so that we can say that and be confident that there is a third Tuesday that is firmly between the first and say the second and fourth Tuesdays. It will provide time before the next Tuesday, and it puts all of our meetings on Tuesdays, which might be valuable for.
That's smart.
It really screws Marcos this way.
And my quarter's already screwed. I've already missed 4 weeks in a row of class, but it's okay.
Okay, but
This is more
do you think putting it on Tuesday starting next quarter would work for you?
100%.
Okay. The pitch there is that then also when people are citing on classes or whatever it is, they can just avoid Tuesday because they're already probably avoiding Tuesday.
Yeah,
You're already missing half your Tuesday.
Exactly. No.
Yeah.
I agree with that also. No, Tuesday is I like Tuesday just being a board day, a district day.
Okay.
The next third Tuesday might be after your class is over.
Amazing. Yeah, it's okay.
Do you have any thoughts on third Tuesday with them?
Same kind of issue. Tuesdays right now are my busiest day, but for next quarter, I could do, it basically looks like after 5 o'clock or before 12:30.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be at any time. It could be any time you guys want it to be.
My pitch is starting next quarter, third Tuesday at 5:30 or 6, so that it just becomes the 5:30 because I repeat. So be at 6 because then it's the same as we just have Tuesdays.
Yeah. As March 21st, Olivia, is that your finals week this year or is it dead week?
21st
We can
will
also
be finals week, but I don't have any on that Tuesday, so that should be fine.
Okay, cool. Does that work for you? Are you in class that day?
I think I might have already been dropped from the class. But
You can make the next one in March on the Wednesday and then go from there on into April.
Yeah, because we've been doing, we need to get a regular meeting, but doesn't mean we have to have one immediately.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah. Then yeah, I would vote for at least the most immediate one be on Wednesday, but I'm not going to be enrolled in spring quarter classes at all.
All right.
Okay.
So we're gonna say, you guys should vote on it. I think you do need to make a motion, but you can say starting in April and then in March, we can schedule
Okay.
a special
Yeah.
meeting.
So I'd like to make a motion that starting in April, the policy committee will meet regularly on the third Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Motion by Marcos. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Second by Olivia. Is there any public comment on this motion? Seeing none, moving on to a roll call vote. Marcos.
Yes.
Olivia.
Yes.
Jay, yes. Motion passes 3000 at 14:27 p.m.
Right on.
Is there anything else we need to cover in this agenda item? Is there anything the public would like to hear? Moving on to agenda item 4, future meeting dates and future agenda items. The next regular meeting of the policy committee will take place at a later date as set will take place at a later date. The next regular meeting of the policy committee will take place in April, the date we just selected, but the next meeting will occur.
Right.
Be some weird special meeting that Jonathan will figure out for us.
While you have you here, can we just do the 22nd at 6 the next day? Just to keep it on that rhythm.
22nd of March.
Yeah. It would have been the 21st, but we'll make it.
That's how I was like, somehow I was like,
Yes.
Edward, you know, the next
Olivia,
day
what
would be
your
that.
final situation is that day.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, so we'll be back on the 22nd.
Okay.
All right.
Is there anything agenda items people would like to suggest? I was going to suggest, but already have suggested us talking about
We had
appointments.
it right. It's
Is there
an appointment
anything else?
process policy.
Is there anything else people would like to add? Anything you'd like to prepare us for? Like what's coming back?
We have something from the backlog. We had our consultant work on it a year and a half ago, and this never came to policy committee, which is a facility naming policy, which if you remember was a policy committee priority back in 2021. So I have a draft. We can discuss that. We also have a time card and payroll policy update that we've been just discussing internally with just the issues we've had with time cards and payroll for the last year to hopefully help us have a policy to justify more things.
Okay, thank you for that.
I have a request.
Yes.
And I wanted to see if this is something that could be brought to the policy committee on a later date. Would be discussing dependent care and maternity leave.
Okay.
Because we don't currently have a policy on that, either of those items. So
Okay,
something to be discussed for the future.
Yes, I agree. That should be the
sounds great. Is that something that you think we can do in the next meeting, or is that something we need a lot of lead time?
We've been working with our lawyer already for the last month, so I will let her know that we need this at the March 22nd.
All right.
But she's been working on it.
Okay.
Always good to have a deadline.
Yeah, I'm almost, because now we've got a bunch of other things that are coming up, then I'm almost thinking like this, my crazy appointment one, we move to a later meeting. So we can.
There's a Trello board now.
All right, moving on to, actually, is there any public comments on this? Hearing none, moving on to.
Oh, Maya has her hand up.
I missed it.
Oh, we can't see it.
Hi,
we
just
can't see it.
really quick, I just wanted to second the priority in doing the dependents and also maternity leave. I think it's really important, and I just want to show that pretty much the entire staff supports creating a policy on this as soon as possible. That's all.
All right. Definitely sounds like the priority. All right, move on to agenda item 5, adjourn. Cool. Anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Yes.
I will
Second.
second that.
All right, motion by Marco, second by Olivia. Moving on, actually, is there any public comment on this motion? Hearing none, moving on to a roll call vote. Marcos.
Yes.
Olivia.
Yes.
Jay, yes, motion passes at 3000 at 14:31 p.m. I call this meeting adjourned.
Great, thank you guys. Very efficient timing on 12:31.
Oh.
Thank you, Olivia.